Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brian from the Daily AI Show. Welcome to another Saturday Conundrum. In this week's episode, we're talking about AI and wilderness. Specifically, what should be AI's role in helping us protect wilderness, species, these kind of things. Now, AI, as you're about to find out, is already involved in many, many ways that are actually really beneficial. But we all know that the technology is going to continue to advance, more autonomous types, drones and robots and things like that. And there's going to be all different ways that AI can get more involved in wilderness. But the other side of this conundrum is, should it? Should it interfere? Should it interact? Should it try to protect species or ecosystems? What have we historically done as humans? Because if you date way, way back, generations upon generations, we have had a hand in cultivating and shaping different wilderness and ecosystems around us. So it's not as if wilderness has been untouched in the past. But does that mean we put AI into the future? Well, that's part of this conundrum. So here's the situation. Conservationists now deploy AI drones as autonomous sensors that can track animal populations, detect poachers, predict wildfires, and even recommend reshaping ecosystems to prevent collapse. These systems protect habitats at scales humans never could. Entire regions could soon thrive only because an unseen layer of algorithms manages balance. The wilderness has always meant a place beyond human control, a space where life adapts on its own, even when it's brutal or uneven. If AI silently engineers the outcome, protecting species and restoring lost habitats, is that wilderness thriving, or a managed garden we only pretend is wild? So here's the conundrum. When nature survives only because algorithms orchestrate its rhythms, do we celebrate a new era of environmental stewardship, or face the reality that wilderness itself has been redesigned into something human-made? So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Don't forget, these Saturday Conundrums are definitely different than all our other episodes during the week, where you have myself as well as all our other wonderful co-hosts talking about conversations live. You can always join those conversations Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Go over to YouTube and you can actually be in the comments. But you can also interact with us in other ways. We actually have a free community that we have lots of people who love the show will join us over there. So that's a thriving community. You can go to the Daily AI Show community.com in order to join. It's a Slack community and you can do that for free. And then you can get involved in the conversations there as well. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. As always, I work with ChatGPT to sort of get to what you just heard as far as the conundrum. I use Perplexity Pro to do some deep research and to help me debate with good research, both sides of it. And finally, I use Google Notebook LM and their great podcast feature in order to produce what you're about to hear. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you next week.
What if the very future of wilderness preservation hinges on artificial intelligence? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel, maybe, but it's actually happening right now. We're seeing conservationists deploying AI-powered drones, autonomous sensors, complex algorithms, all to track animal populations, detect poachers, predict wildfires, and even, get this, recommend reshaping entire ecosystems to stop them from collapsing.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is that while these systems clearly protect habitats on scales humans never could, they bring up this profound paradox. Wilderness, we've always thought of it as a place beyond human control, right? A space where life just adapts, evolves on its own. So if AI is silently engineering the outcomes, protecting species, restoring habitats, is that wilderness really wild and thriving? Or is it more like a meticulously managed garden we just pretend is untamed? That right there is the core of this AI wilderness conundrum.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we want to unpack today. In this deep dive, using your sources, we're going to explore this really interesting philosophical debate. What does wildness truly mean in an age of, technological stewardship? We'll look at the powerful arguments for using AI in conservation, but also the equally compelling concerns about what we might be losing in the process.
Exactly.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this paradox, let's first dive into why AI has become such a key tool for conservationists. What makes proponents say it's not just beneficial, but maybe even a moral imperative now?
Well, it's a great question. When you look at the evidence, the argument for AI-driven conservation it's incredibly strong. And it comes from a few different angles. I think the first key point is just its unprecedented effectiveness at critical scale. These AI systems are, frankly, achieving remarkable success in protecting biodiversity on a scale that was just, impossible for human management alone.
Right. Can you give us some tangible examples of that scale and speed? How does it actually play out on the ground?
Sure. So we're talking about things like camera traps. With AI, they can process millions of images in weeks. It used to take years. This means wildlife managers can set, say, hunting quotas based on current real-time data, not info that's 5 years old and, frankly, probably out of date.
Okay, yeah, that makes a huge difference.
It does. And across Africa, for example, AI systems are now monitoring over 650 protected areas. That's across 76 countries. They provide real-time alerts about poaching. They can predict elephant movements to help prevent conflicts with people. Just the capacity for continuous 247 monitoring, that's a fundamental game changer. And think about wildlife insights, that WWF and Google project. It can ID over 1,300 species. After those awful Australian bushfires, it processed 7 million photos in just weeks. That allowed for really rapid, targeted conservation responses.
Wow, 7 million. The speed is obviously incredible. But beyond just doing things faster, what can AI actually reveal about nature that was, I don't know, hidden from us before? Things we couldn't perceive or analyze.
Right, that leads to the next point. Precision beyond human capability. AI systems can detect patterns, correlations, things that are completely invisible to us. So, for instance, acoustic monitoring, just listening, basically, but using machine learning. It's identified over 30 bird species and 6 bat species living right alongside railway tracks in Britain, revealed these wildlife corridors nobody knew were there.
Just from sound.
Just from sound patterns, yeah. Or think about drones with multispectral and hyperspectral sensors. These are like super advanced cameras seeing light wavelengths we can't. They can spot really subtle changes in plant health, early signs of ecosystem stress, disease outbreaks, maybe pollution, long before it becomes visible to a human observer.
Okay, so it's like an early warning system, but on a much deeper level.
Exactly. And this precision, it isn't just about what's happening right now. It also extends into predicting the future, doesn't it?
Right, allowing us to be more proactive instead of just reacting all the time.
Precisely. AI can pull together these incredibly diverse data sets, things like coastal elevation maps, historical storm patterns, detailed soil hydrology. That's how water moves through soil. It can simulate how, say, restored mangrove ecosystems might reduce flood risk under different climate change scenarios. This allows for really evidence-based decisions on where to put conservation resources. It shifts conservation from, constantly putting out fires.
Reactive crisis management, yeah.
To proactive, strategic investment. It lets us rewild, maybe, but with a kind of blueprint we just couldn't have had before. That's a real shift.
So if AI is that powerful, does that fundamentally change our sense of responsibility? It sounds like proponents see it almost as a moral imperative.
Yeah.
In this era, some call the Anthropocene.
Yeah.
Moving away from hands-off towards active management. Is that a fair way to put their argument?
Yeah. I think stepping back to look at the bigger picture, that's exactly what proponents are arguing. In this era, the Anthropocene, where human activity has fundamentally altered, pretty much every ecosystem on Earth, they argue that a purely hands-off approach to wilderness isn't just impractical, it's ethically problematic.
Problematic how?
Well, with climate change accelerating, habitat loss continuing, refusing to use our most advanced tools could be seen as a kind of moral abdication, a failure to act when we could. So active management is seen as essential just to preserve basic ecological functions. Even if, as one source points out, every intervention diminishes an area's wildness. For many conservationists, the alternative, letting ecosystems collapse, is just far worse.
And maybe, sort of counterintuitively, some people suggest AI might actually enhance our connection to nature, not push us further away.
Yes, that's a really thought-provoking angle, isn't it? The idea is that, far from alienating us, AI-enabled conservation could actually deepen our understanding and our engagement. Think about citizen science apps like iNaturalist, powered by AI. They let millions of people contribute to biodiversity monitoring. That democratizes participation in a way that just wasn't possible before.
Right. Anyone with a smartphone can contribute.
Exactly. And when AI reveals, say, the intricate acoustic signatures of individual wolf packs or maps out these vast hidden migration patterns, it provides insights that could genuinely inspire a much greater sense of environmental stewardship, maybe even wonder.
Okay, we've definitely heard a compelling case for AI and conservation there. But like with any powerful technology, there's always a flip side, isn't there? A counter-narrative. What are the equally strong arguments from those who are, let's say, wary of this technological stewardship over nature?
Right, and this is where it gets really complex. The core objection from critics really centers on the the erosion of wildness as self-determination. There's a wilderness philosopher, Roger Kay, who talks about untrammeled wildness. What he means is the capacity for natural systems to adapt, to evolve, autonomously, free from human intent to control or manipulate them.
Untrammeled. So not interfered with, not controlled.
Exactly. And critics argue that when AI systems start orchestrating ecosystem management, even if the intentions are good, benevolent, they fundamentally change wild spaces. They turn them into, well, managed gardens that are just disguised as wilderness.
So it's not just about what you can see on the surface, like whether it looks natural. It's about the underlying process, the freedom of the system itself.
Precisely. The original, the foundational 1964 Wilderness Act in the U.S., it defined wilderness as an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man. Ooh. AI-directed conservation, no matter how sophisticated the algorithms get, you could argue it represents the ultimate expression of human trammel. It's algorithmic control over natural processes, which, by that definition, means it's no longer truly wild.
And what about our own experience of nature? Does AI sort of mediate that experience in a way that might be problematic, disconnecting us?
That's another major concern, yes. It raises this important question about the technological mediation of authentic experience. Philosophers of technology often warn that technology doesn't just present reality like our senses do. Instead, it represents it, reproduces it, simulates it.
Simulates it.
Yeah. So when our understanding of wildlife comes mainly through AI processed camera feeds or data visualizations, charts, and graphs, we risk losing those direct, unmediated encounters, that raw experience. There's a field biologist, Denver Holt, who captured this really well. He said, "I know people who are modeling owls in owl habitat who have never seen an owl."
Wow. That's quite a statement.
It is, and it points to this risk of what some call an extinction of experience, even among ecologists and conservationists themselves. The very people meant to be stewards of the wild might lose that direct connection.
That seems like it could also connect to bigger cultural and maybe historical issues, too, beyond just the tech itself.
It absolutely does. Critics argue that AI-driven conservation can perhaps inadvertently perpetuate this problematic idea, the myth of a pristine baseline, and potentially even a kind of cultural imperialism.
Okay, unpack pristine baseline myth for us.
Sure. It's the belief, which has largely been debunked now, that landscapes existed in some untouched natural state before humans, particularly Europeans, arrived. But we know indigenous peoples have actively shaped landscapes for millennia through practices like controlled burning, cultivation, hunting.
Right, they weren't passive observers.
Not at all. So the concern is, if AI systems are trained primarily on Western scientific data, Western paradigms, they risk encoding cultural biases about what nature should look like, and that could potentially devalue or just completely discount traditional ecological knowledge, which is often deeply place-based and built up over generations.
I see. And then there's the actual physical footprint of the AI itself, isn't there, which creates a kind of paradox.
Yes, that's a crucial point. It highlights serious environmental and social justice concerns. The massive infrastructure you need for these AI conservation systems, the servers, the data centers, carries its own significant environmental cost. These data centers use enormous amounts of energy and water. Just to give you some perspective, training one single large language model, the kind of AI that powers many advanced systems.
Like ChatGPT or similar things.
Exactly. Training one of those can require as much electricity as about 130 households use in an entire year.
Whoa.
Yeah. So the very spread of AI-powered conservation could, paradoxically, contribute to the environmental degradation it's trying to fix. And beyond that, there's the risk of algorithmic bias. If the models are mainly trained on data from, say, wealthier areas, they might be less effective or even discriminatory when applied in marginalized communities, potentially worsening environmental injustices.
Okay. And finally, there's this deeper concern about how this all changes our fundamental relationship with nature, maybe turning it into something else entirely.
That's right. Stepping back again to the bigger picture, critics worry about the commodification and maybe gamification of nature. You hear this language used often in AI conservation talk of efficiency, optimization, resource allocation. Environmental philosopher Eric Higgs calls this the potential Disneyification of wilderness.
Disneyification, like making it a theme park.
Sort of, yeah. Nature risks becoming this kind of programmed experience managed for human consumption rather than being a genuinely wild other that exists on its own terms. This approach, critics fear, risks reducing the incredible complexity, the mystery, the inherent value of wild systems down to just data points to be managed and optimized.
So where does all this leave us? We've heard these two incredibly strong arguments, seemingly pulling in opposite directions, yet it feels like both sides ultimately share the same core value, right? Preserving biodiversity, fostering a meaningful relationship with nature.
That's what's so fascinating, isn't it? The debate really hinges on these deeper philosophical questions. Questions about agency, authenticity, the relationship between our technological power and nature's autonomy. And the paradox kind of deepens when you realize that even choosing not to use AI, deciding to refrain from intervention, that's still a human decision shaping natural systems.
Ah, right. There's no escaping human influence anymore.
Pretty much. In a world that's already been so fundamentally altered by us, can any approach, whether it's active AI management or deliberate non-intervention, truly restore authentic wildness as we might have once imagined it? It's a tough question.
Yeah, it sounds like it's definitely not a simple choice, not just AI good or AI bad.
Exactly. There's a wilderness management expert, Patrick Kelly, who observes that this debate often presents kind of false dichotomy, between completely untrammeled wilderness on one side and actively managed ecosystems on the other. And that raises an important question. Maybe the path forward isn't about choosing one extreme. Perhaps it's about developing more nuanced approaches that try to honor both the value of natural autonomy and the reality of human responsibility in this deeply interconnected world we live in.
This deep dive really does challenge us, doesn't it? To examine our most fundamental assumptions about nature, about technology, and about our own responsibilities towards the wild. It seems clear that AI offers these incredible opportunities for conservation, undeniable benefits. But it also forces us to grapple with these really profound questions about what wild even means anymore, when human intention, however good it might be, is so deeply woven into its fabric.
Yeah, the AI Wilderness Conundrum, at its heart, it asks whether we can actually create systems that genuinely enhance rather than diminish the wildness we say we want to preserve. Can our technologies serve authentic wilderness values, or will it inevitably transform them into something else? And this question, it just gets more pressing as AI systems become more sophisticated, more autonomous, potentially making conservation decisions that reshape entire ecosystems, maybe without direct human oversight down the line. It really makes you think,